Good evening, 6th grade or algebra kids. Hope everybody's doing well. Didn't get any emails or any messages about yesterday's lesson, so I assume it went well. And I hope you guys are staying up to date with your schoolwork and you're getting your notes down, because we're moving ahead into part 2 of our chapter 5, lesson 5 notes, and this goes along with completing the square. And again, we broke up that lesson just because there is some bulk in this. If you kind of take into account what we did last time, especially for what we do today, we're going to have a new equation today. We're going to see how we kind of finish doing this completing the square process. And really, all in all, there's just a lot of new material in this that you have not seen. So let's cut the chit-chatter and let's get going with what we're looking at today. So again, it's kind of a refresher from our last set of notes. To find C, remember, if we're working with this ax squared plus bx plus c, if we're working with this, and I always kind of call this standard form, but if we're working with this and we're trying to find C, we use this equation here, b divided by 2, and then we take that answer and we square it. And remember, whenever we have anything in this form, this standard form, that 2 exponent that goes along with the x, that tells us how many solutions we should have. So for any of these equations that look like this, they're going to create a parabola, either like the one I've drawn here in my notes, or maybe flipped upside down, where the top of it is up top here and it works itself down. And again, those 2 solutions are where it crosses through on the x-axis. Today we're going to focus on finding the vertex of these parabolas. We're going to complete the square, and we're going to find the vertex of these equations then. And whenever we find the vertex, kind of a little bit what you guys did last class, and then what we're doing today, that is what we call completing the square, as you see in the lesson title, and also I keep referring to it in our notes. So when we find the vertex, we can use this equation here, y equals x minus h squared plus k. So what we're going to do is we're going to take things that are in this form here, this standard form, and we're going to rearrange them to where they look like this equation, this y equals x minus h squared plus k. And what this means is, whatever value we get for h, that's almost like the x value in an ordered pair. And whatever value we get for k, that's like the y value in an ordered pair. That's why we have the parentheses here, and that's what this vertex is. So remember, when we graph things, which is what the vertex is on this graph, that's an ordered pair. That's an x and a y. So that's almost what this h and this k stand for, is for an x and for a y. Also, something I want you to pay attention to in our equation. Notice with the h, there's a subtraction symbol next to it. So in order for h to be positive, we need to have a subtraction symbol in our final equation. The same thing applies for the k. There's an addition symbol in front of it, so in order for k to be positive in our ordered pair, there needs to be an addition symbol in front of it as well. If there were to be plus h, well, that means this would be a negative h, because it's the opposite from how I have it in my original equation. Same thing, if it was minus k, it would create a minus k down here at the bottom. So h is the one to pay attention to, because it's almost backwards from how we're used to seeing it. So let's get started with our first equation. So I'm given the equation y equals x squared plus 6x plus 8. And we can see this if we take our calculators, we go to our y equals, we type in what our equation is going to be, and then we hit graph. And when you graph this equation, you can see that the vertex is almost directly on the x-axis. And I believe my window is still in that format we used the other day. So let me go through and let's change this. Make it a little easier to see for us. Alright, so there's my graph. It's a little easier to see. And you can see my vertex, it's just below the x-axis, and it's just to the left of the y-axis. So that's my vertex, and that's what we're trying to find. Now, you could find the vertex from your calculator and be done with things, but it's not really going to help you when it comes time for algebra class next year, or should you be moving on into higher math. So we need to take this equation and find the vertex in it. So I'm going to do this y equals x squared plus 6x plus 8. And the first thing we need to do is we need to complete the square just like what we did yesterday. So I'm going to take my plus 8, and I am going to move it to the other side. So it's going to be y, and in order to move positive 8 to the other side, I need to subtract it. So it's going to be y minus 8 equals x squared plus 6x. So that's my first step. My second step, guys, needs to be, we're going to find that c. So really what we've done so far is nothing new from what we did yesterday. So in order to find c, I'm going to take my b, which is 6, and I'm going to divide it by 2, which is 3, and I'm going to square it. So 3 squared is 9. So I'm going to take 9, and I'm going to add it to both sides, very much like we did yesterday. So I now have y, when you take negative 8 plus 9, you get plus 1 is equal to x squared plus 6x plus 9. And maybe for your notes, it might not be a bad idea to write that plus 9 on both sides. So that way you know that you're having to add 9 to both sides. Alright, so we've now gone through and we've added 9 to both sides. Now I need to factor. So again, just like what we did yesterday, I want to factor the right side of my equation. The left side cannot be factored any down because y plus 1 cannot take anything out of both of those. When you factor the right side, however, it's going to factor into two quantities here. So I'm going to have x and x, and I need to split 9 up into two things. When multiplied, those numbers can be added together to give me 6. So whenever I do such, it's going to be 3. So I'm left with x plus 3 and x plus 3. And we can rewrite this then as y plus 1 is equal to x plus 3 squared. And you can probably already see, guys, how this equation is already beginning to kind of look like the equation that we need to get to find the vertex. Remember, that's what we're doing with this equation. I'm trying to find the vertex. So the last step, because I need to get this into a y equals, I need to take this 1 and get it to the other side. And the only way to do that is by subtracting it. So I'm going to have y is equal to x plus 3 squared minus 1. And there you have it. There, this equation now is almost identical to this top equation. This y equals x minus h squared. We've got x plus 3 squared plus k. Well, ours is minus 1. And now we can find the vertex. So by looking at my equation here, my vertex is equal to, well, let's focus on my x value first. My x value is this h. Remember, in order for h to be positive, I need it to be a minus h. Well, down here I have plus 3. So that's going to be the opposite. So this is going to turn into negative 3. And then my k, I need to be plus k. Well, down here I have minus 1. So this one is also going to be the opposite. So it's going to be minus 1. So there you have it. My vertex is negative 3, negative 1. So remember, our k's kind of stay the same. I may have said opposite. I apologize on that. Our k's stay the same. So if it's plus k, it's going to be a plus k down here. If it's a minus k, it'll be a minus k down here. So k will stay the same. H is where you look at the opposite. So if it's minus H, it actually is a positive. If it's plus H, it's actually going to be a minus. So there's my vertex. My vertex is -3, -1. So we're taking much of the same strategy that we used yesterday in order to find the vertex like we just did on number 1. Let's go ahead and let's try it for number 2. So this time we'll go a little quicker with it. So y is equal to x squared plus 4x plus 10. And on this one, again, I want to get it where it's just the x squared and the x on one side, because I need to get a new c in order to complete the square. So I'm going to move 10 to the other side, so it's going to be y minus 10 equals x squared plus 4x. And now I can go through and I can find c. So my b is 4. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 squared is 4. So I need to make sure that I'm adding 4 to both sides. So y minus 6 is equal to x squared plus 4x plus 4. And now we need to go through and we need to factor. So y minus 6 is equal to, again, factor it into two quantities. If you can go straight to this set of parentheses squared, do so. But if some of you need to write the two factors out and fully factor it first, do that as well. It's really not a bad idea, guys, to go ahead and still do this step, just to make sure that, hey, when I FOIL this out, it still equals this trinomial, and also that these do match, and that they should be something squared. So when I break this one down, it's going to turn into x and x. I'm working with two positives, so it's going to be plus, plus. Now I need to break 4 up. So two numbers that when multiplied give me 4, added together can give me 4, and that's going to turn into 2 and 2. So we can rewrite this then as y minus 6 is equal to x plus 2 squared. Last step, get it as a y equals. So I'm going to take my 6, add it to the other side. So y is equal to, whoops, pencil's acting up today, x plus 2 squared. And then I'm going to take this 6 and add it to the other side. So plus 6. And there you have it. Now we have it in the right format, the same equation. My vertex, let's go ahead and let's get us a x value and a y value, or otherwise known as an h and a k. So again, my h value, negative h. Well, I have a plus 2, so that's going to create a negative 2. And plus k, well, I have plus 6, so this is going to stay as a 6. So I have negative 2, 6 as my vertex. So not too terrible. Let's move ahead. I've got 2 more problems, and we're going to wrap things up for class today. So number 3. Number 3 may not be a bad one, guys, for you to attempt on your own. Maybe pause the video and then hit play and maybe see how your answer compares to mine. Alright, let's get busy with number 3. So again, just like what we've done on numbers 1 and 2, let's move that 34 to the other side. So I'm going to have y minus 34 is equal to x squared plus 12x. Again, a lot of repetition with this, guys, and that's kind of the nice thing about doing so many problems with maybe a new format like this. Now I need to find c. So again, take your 12, divide it by 2. When you divide by 2, you get 6. Square 6. That's going to give you 36. So I'm going to add 36 to both sides. Do not forget to add 36 to both sides. I can tell you right now, the number one mistake will be you'll add 36 to the right side, and you'll forget to do it to the left. And you'll do it to the right side because you know you're missing a c. However, on the left side, you'll see this negative 34, and you'll think you've already got all the pieces you need. Don't forget to add it. You need to do it. Whenever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So if we take negative 34, we add that to 36, we're going to get y plus 2 is equal to x squared plus 12x plus 36. And then from there, we're going to just break it down. So y plus 2. This time I'm going to kind of go through this one a little quicker. So again, whenever we do our squares here, it's going to turn into an x plus 6. And I know that because 6 times 6 gives me 36. And 6 plus 6 gives me 12. Last step, get y by itself. So I'm going to take my 2. It's a positive, so I need to get it to the other side. So x plus 6 squared minus 2. And there you have it. Now we can come and put our vertex. So my vertex on this problem is going to be negative 6, negative 2. And again, our k stays the same, so I have a negative 2, negative 2. My h is always going to be the opposite of what I found. So I found plus 6, so my h is going to be negative 6. Not terrible at all. And again, if you maybe kind of check yourself, you can come over to your calculator. You have x squared plus 12x plus 34. You hit graph it. And there you go. Negative 6, negative 2, negative 6, negative 2. Pretty darn close. Without going through and checking it on my calculator, it looks like it matches up pretty good with the screen. Alright, last problem. So number 4 here. So with number 4, this time there's a couple of things different. First off, it's not in the typical y equals that we've been seeing. Also, they kind of already start us out with two quantities being multiplied by one another. The first thing whenever you have something like this, guys, you need to get it where it is set up more in the standard form. And what I mean by that is where it is your x squared plus 12x plus 34. I want to get number 4 to look more like that. And the way you can do that is by going through and foiling your two quantities that you have. So let's go through and let's FOIL this out. So I'm going to have 3x squared plus 6x plus 2x plus 4. Don't forget about that equals 100 on the end. I can combine like terms next, so I'm going to have 3x squared plus 8x plus 4. And this still equals 100. Alright, so we've got it now into standard form. And again, how this problem kind of separates itself from the rest of them is because my leading coefficient that's with my x squared, it's a whole number. We've been dealing with every problem so far where it's just been x squared. So these problems are specifically when a is not equal to 1. So that's kind of what this number 4 problem focuses on. Anytime you're solving a problem and a is not equal to 1. The steps to going about solving it is still very similar. I still want to move my 4 over to the other side. So to do that, I need to subtract it. So I'm going to have 3x squared plus 8x is equal to, the only way to move it over is to subtract it. So I'm going to be left with 96. Okay, and then from there, now what I need to do is I need to get rid of this 3 out front. I need to get rid of my leading coefficient. I need to get it where it's equal to an x squared out front. And the only way to do this is, if I'm being multiplied by 3, I need to do the opposite. I need to divide by 3. I cannot just divide this front term by 3. I have to make sure that I divide every single term in this equation by 3 as well. Once you divide everything by 3, your new equation reads x squared. I would probably read this as 8 thirds. I probably would not change that into a decimal, mainly because the decimal goes on and on and on forever. It just repeats. It's 2.6 repeating. So it's going to be 8 thirds x, and that is going to be equal to 96 divided by 3. And when you do take on your calculator 96 divided by 3, you get this equal to 32. So this is my new equation, and this is going to be the one that I'm going to continue to work with. Now from here, now I'm going to solve it very much so like we have done in the last couple of problems. Notice, I've got an x squared and an x. I need to get a c. So my next step is to find what this c is equal to. So x squared, I'm going to have to create a little room here, plus 8 thirds x plus, I need to figure out what c is. And c is going to be, I'm going to take this 8 thirds, divide that by 2, and then square it. I would probably come over to my calculator, guys, on this step here, and do this all in one step. 8 thirds divided by 2, and then square it. And when you square it, I would then leave this all as a fraction. That way everything is in the same format. So that's going to give me 16 divided by 9. Another way you could have done that, maybe if you wanted to try and do it a little more independently without using your calculator, take 8 divided by 2, gives you 4, square that, do 3 divided by 2, actually, that wasn't working down there. Never mind. 16 over 9 would be what your c is equal to. Last but not least, take your 32, and you also need to add 16 over 9 to it as well. So make sure that you're adding the 16 over 9 to both sides. Come back over here, do your 16 divided by 9 plus 32. Again, I would probably still continue to leave all this as a fraction. So 304 over 9 is going to be what this is then equal to. Okay, from here, again, same next step, just like what we did on the left-hand side over here. After we got our new c, we now need to factor this down. So I'm going to factor the left side of my equation. And after you go through here and you factor it, this one's going to come out to x plus 4 thirds squared. It's going to come out to x plus 4 thirds and x plus 4 thirds. And that is equal to, again, 304 divided by 9. Next, again, because we're trying to find those two solutions, this is when we have to solve the equation. And we did this back in lesson 9-4. So the next step to solve this equation is I need to get rid of the square root symbol. So I can get rid of my square root symbol by square rooting both sides. So now I have x plus 4 thirds. And remember, when we take the square root, it's going to create a plus or minus of that square root of 304 divided by 9. We can come over here to our calculator, make it a little easier on ourselves. So take the square root of 304 divided by 9. So it comes out with a decimal. I would probably round this and just leave it at 5.81. We'll just go to 2 decimal spots. So 5.81. Your next step, again, just like we did in lesson 9-4, break it apart. So x plus 4 thirds equals positive 5.81, and then we also have x plus 4 thirds is equal to negative 5.81. And then your last step, on both sides, you're going to have to subtract 4 thirds. And that will tell you then your two solutions to this problem. So your two solutions are going to be equal to, x is equal to, when you subtract on the one side, it's going to give you 4.48. And on the other side, it's going to give you 7.14, a negative 7.14. So x is going to be equal to both of those. So those are where my two solutions line up at on number 4. Alright, those are your problems for today, guys. I hope the last one did not intimidate you too much. For your homework tomorrow, I am going to try and put one or two of those on there. My best advice, guys, especially, I think every one of us can get down to this step where we begin to factor. I think that's the most challenging part on these problems. Guys, again, a lot of this is going to be some guess and check with it, plugging numbers in, finding out what works whenever you divide, what two numbers multiplied, and then also add up to create the 8/3. Notice, guys, whenever we do have fractions here, whenever you add, you have to have a common denominator. So that's kind of going to be kind of something to look for. Notice 4/3. Well, the only thing that makes 8/3 that's going to be the same that I can square it is when I divide that 8 by 2. So 4 and 4. And you know the denominator has to be a 3 because you're adding fractions. So again, kind of small hints like those that we remember from back with adding fractions and multiplying fractions are going to be what can kind of help whenever we get to this factoring part here. But again, I think 1, 2, and 3, these are the biggest ones. As long as you know the steps and you know how to solve these and you know how to complete the square and find that vertex, then you should do just fine. Don't forget about your equation. Y equals x minus h squared plus k. Guys, if you have any questions, let me know. Feel free to email me and let me know what you think. Thanks, guys.